Hello, ghouls and gals, and welcome to the new year. 2024 marks a lot of new things, I'm sure for many of you. It's a bit of a fresh start, a way to move on from the baggage you've left behind. But as a YouTuber focused largely on Warhammer Fantasy, I can never forget, I can never let go. Even if we're nearing a decade since the end times, I'm still not ready to move on from the worst law/business decision made in GW's recent history, and it seems the company isn't either. Just one look at our return to the old world and you can see that they're more than happy to bring back our favourite fantasy setting. Unfortunately, the end times will remain canon though. But what if it didn't? What if we could go and make our own version of the apocalyptic event? Well, other YouTubers have given it a go and they've done a very good job. I was going to leave it alone because I just think they do better than me, but one lovely commenter known as Aris asked me to try my own hand at a rewrite, and who am I to deny my audience? My take on the end times is going to follow as many of the major plot points as I can. This is because I want to see if we can actually make the story good without just completely revamping it. Also, I'm lazy, so it saves time. Trust me, you don't want me to give you a fanfiction audiobook for 100 hours. We're also going to be going over the plot faction by faction, dealing with the major players and how I think their story should be conveyed. Of course there's going to be some overlap, but hopefully this makes it a bit more digestible. In any case, as you can read in the title of this video, we're starting with Chaos, the big bad at the end of it all, the main antagonist of all Warhammer settings. Backed by gods that can end worlds with flicks of their wrists, the Warriors of Chaos should always feel like a world-ending threat. Yet, even though they end the world in the end times, I can't help but feel like they're almost downplayed to an extent. It's the Skaven who really do all of the heavy lifting when it comes to making sure Chaos can keep rampaging through the world unimpeded. Also, Chaos is disserviced a lot by the plot. Rather than have the forces of Chaos feel like they're earning their wins, throughout the books they are just granted victory after victory because never-ending plot armour and the good guys can never pull up their big boy pants. There's something to be said of the theme that no matter what Order does, it can't win. In the end times, the Order Tide often pulls together a plan or musters their forces right at the last minute, but when that's been enough before, now it isn't. The only problem is that Chaos doesn't exactly feel like it's the unstoppable threat it's often presented as. A lot of showing, not telling, and so our mission is to give Chaos an earned win. I think the easiest way to do that is simply to flip our arcs. The Marvel movies might be steaming piles of squig dung nowadays, but something they did really well in Infinity War was giving us a villain who went on a hero's journey. I see no reason why we can't do that with Chaos. Games Workshop did try and do this to their credit, but did so in a rushed manner, so instead of a true journey of ups and downs, we just get lazy plot armour and as many shortcuts as necessary to get us to that endpoint. This seems like a crying shame, especially when we've been given such a solid end times protagonist in Archaon. I have no qualms with Archaon, outside of the end times that is, because with that event everyone gets a bit loopy, but I'm actually quite the fan of our latest Everchosen. Most people were, because rather than just a brute who the Chaos Gods decided to shoot full of magic steroids, Archaon felt like a proper three-dimensional villain character in Warhammer, which is fairly hard to find. For our end times, we're going to be following Archaon as our primary protagonist. Something I didn't like about the end times books was that they keep the Everchosen a mystery. Rarely do we see things from Chaos's perspective, and so most of the time we're stuck with the bumbling idiots that the good guys are. To create a successful protagonist, we want to see them win at the end, and if we're still going to blow up the world, which we'll see about that, we're going to have to work hard to make it seem like the right outcome. Attack on Titan did it. I wanted to see Eren stomp everyone into dust, but then they pulled the plug at the last minute. Shame. Our story then begins with Archaon in the year 2519. This is 8 years before the world explodes, but it is when the twin-tailed comet shows up, heralding great doom to spread across the lands. As the realms of Chaos and the mortal realm grow ever closer, demonic incursions give the Warriors of Chaos a little breathing room, allowing Archaon the space he needs to crown himself the new Everchosen. Nothing has changed so far. Archaon collects the 6 treasures of Chaos, and we stay with him for this journey, seeing his ups and downs, seeing him lose his trusted steed, seeing him consumed by the madness of the Chaos Gods, and then defy them to become the Everchosen. Only then is he ready to strike. Well, he would be ready, were there not a few practical problems standing in his way. First, Archaon has to figure out where he'll strike. In the official lore, he sends a bit of an army everywhere. Valkyr to Naggaroth, the Glock to the Empire, you get the gist. This is largely because Games Workshop just decided he has untold millions of men to throw at the forces of good. We're not going to be that lazy. Archaon can field massive numbers of demons, yes, but they are more loyal to the Chaos Gods than they are to him. The only men he can semi-trust are the mortals under his command, those that are truly undivided within Chaos, and they do not number in the millions. I'm sorry, you just can't convince me that a barren, icy wasteland full of brutish tribes killing each other all the time can suddenly spew out enough mortal men to end the lovely, normal realms of elves, dwarves, and men. Instead, Archaon is going to have to be a bit smarter. His army is large, yes, but not as large as the last great Chaos army that threatened the world. Therefore, he's going to have to be clever about when and where he strikes. He can harass the other forces of the world with demon armies while he goes in search of a way to end the world. Archaon also has to be smart about how he goes about ending the world, as it's not something that the Chaos Gods are going to be particularly happy about. Why would they want the billions of souls they feast on to just disappear in a blink? Chaos wants to win the world, to torture it, not to bring it to an end. Archaon's goal is different. He's not a force of chaos. He is simply so disillusioned with the Empire and the world that the only solution he sees is to end it. Right, so we've got our set of problems. How do we get around them? Well, like I said, Archaon's invasion plan only changes slightly. He won't be able to destroy Naggaroth if we're being more realistic about his numbers, and so instead he'll just distract them with wave after wave of demons, as he does with Ulthuan, while entering Kislev. However, immediately Archaon will hit his first snag in the road, as he'll meet not only the forces of the Ice Queen, but a contingency of Empire troops from the north as well. In our story, as soon as Teclis hears about the ending of the world, he's going to contact the allies of the High Elves. Kislev and the Empire will therefore be slightly more prepared for the oncoming threat. Archaon still manages to put most of the country to the torch, but is held back just before he can breach the city of Kislev itself by the Auric Bastion, the huge wall of earth erected by Balthazar Gelt. Now, Archaon is furious. He could push through the wall, but it would waste time and troops. Instead, he decides to probe the Empire, sending a force of Nurgle worshippers around the Auric Bastion from the coast of Kislev and towards Nordland. He could send troops to Marienburg, but there are likely to be stronger defences there, especially if Bretonnia has finally stopped fighting its civil war. The Northern Empire provinces have sent most of their troops to defend Kislev, and that will be their downfall. Archaon's forces, backed by plagues that Nurgle sends forth, alongside Chaos cultists living within nearby towns, manage to take most of Nordland and Osterland before they can be dealt with by the full might of the Empire army. This is enough of a distraction, however, as it allows Archaon to change tactics. He'll keep most of his army in front of the Auric Bastion, hoping that the Changeling can deal with it from the other side, but as a backup, he and his Swords of Chaos will instead cut a bloody swath through the World's Edge mountains, eventually bursting out of Ostermark. Building a horde of beastmen from the Great Forest, he'll charge the backline of the Auric Bastion while Kairos Fateweaver and other powerful sorcerers create a big hole enough for his army to get through in the ensuing chaos. It's a tough battle, one Archaon nearly loses, but luckily just as it seems the Empire will hold, undead rise from the ground. They attack both sides, but Chaos makes the most of this chance. Archaon appears to slay Karl Franz in single combat, slaughters the priests holding the bastion, and brings it tumbling down. Vlad von Karstein and Wallach Harkon arrive too late to stop the bastion crumbling, but they do stop Archaon riding down the Empire troops, but it's at the cost of Harkon's life. Rather than have him join Chaos and die almost instantly, I'd rather him perish at Archaon's hand to show just how strong our Everchosen is. I don't want anyone thinking Harkon and his Blood Knights don't go down without a fight though. He deals Archaon a devastating blow before he goes down, stopping the Everchosen from pressing his advantage and allowing a wounded Karl Franz enough space to return to Altdorf. Without the Emperor guiding them, the Empire quickly tries to find new leadership. Boris Todbringer offers himself as the new Emperor, but the people look to Volton, a young blacksmith who appears to be a herald of Sigmar. As the Empire struggles with its desperate politicking, Archaon solidifies his hold on the north. He doesn't take Kislev or Erengrad, instead cutting off all supplies to them, ensuring that the people there will either starve or succumb to the plagues. He also offers most of the desperate civilians and soldiers living within the safety of the walls salvation if they join Chaos. The will of Kislev holds strong in most of these places, but the land is in no position to help the Empire, allowing Archaon to push further south unimpeded. His goal is Middenheim, but before he can get there, he decides to make sure that the forces of order will not be united once more. You see, unlike in the main books where the Empire just sort of sits around in cities waiting to be attacked, in this version Archaon knows that as soon as he besieges one city, the rest of the Empire's armies will come marching to meet him. Even without their emperor, he's going to have a tough time pushing through them, so Archaon has a few options before him. He stews over them for a while, and as he does, Bretonnia ends its civil war, Vlad von Carstein raises an army of the dead to help the Empire, and Karl Franz makes his return to Altdorf. It all looks dire, as if Archaon's journey will be cut short when he decides to use the other forces of chaos to his advantage. Using the changeling once more, he infiltrates the court of Altdorf. He sows seeds of distrust among Karl Franz's closest traitors, making them believe that the Emperor did indeed die up north and that the returning figure is an imposter. Franz, in the meantime, is also warned of a shapeshifter in his midst, one that pretends to be Sigmar reborn. His eyes shift to Voltan, and in this version Karl Franz refuses to give the young man Gal Maraz. Archaon also enlists the aid of the Beastmen, specifically Khazrak One-Eye, who he sends to Middenheim to cause more havoc than before. Bolstered by demons of Khorne and Slanesh, Khazrak cuts a bloody path around Middenland that Toddy cannot ignore. Riding out to meet the Beastmen, the Count of Middenheim is led on a wild goose chase into the Drakwold, leaving his city wide open. By the time he returns, it is too late, and Archaon can now call the city his own, while eliminating Toddy and a good chunk of the Empire's forces in one fell swoop, catching the Elector between the Rock of Middenheim and the hard place of Khazrak's forces. We do accelerate things a bit in this version of the End Times, as once Archaon has Middenheim, he doesn't have much need to destroy anywhere else. Well, maybe with one exception. Nuln could just obliterate most of the city with its firepower, and so we'll send Kairos Fateweaver down there to stir up some trouble. Then, with the elves still locked in civil war and the dwarves being harassed by Skaven and Greenies, Archaon has enough time to dig deep into Middenheim and discover the secret to destroying the world. As I said, this is largely a similar path that Archaon takes in the End Times, but in this version he's been smarter about his moves, making plays that win him the day without plot armor and with enough risk to keep tensions high. At any point, Archaon facing defeat means the end of his plans and the potential end to chaos. However, by taking Middenheim and beginning his final plans early, he forces the Empire, Vlad and Bretonnia into action. They cannot afford to wait for the dwarves and elves, nor have the greenskins rallied against chaos yet. Therefore, the first battle of Middenheim is one where Archaon should and does have the numbers advantage. Moreover, he's on the defence this time, meaning he can use the sorceries at his disposal to protect Middenheim and wear down the attackers while they besiege him. Still, through sheer force of will, the Empire looks like it will prevail. Countless warriors give their lives to push through to Archaon at Middenheim, and before long the Everchosen comes face to face with Voltan. Still slowed by his wound from Wallach Harkon, Archaon struggles somewhat against Voltan, especially when Kurt Helborg breaks the line of the Swords of Chaos and manages to push Archaon into a corner. There, the Everchosen makes a final, desperate plea, calling to Voltan. He tells the lad who he was in his past life, why he hates the Empire, and why he also doesn't even trust Chaos. He knows Voltan has endured so much pain, so why is he fighting to save a suffering, dying world? Chaos can't be beaten, but it can be denied if the world ends. Voltan then kills Helborg, allowing Archaon to turn the fight around. Seeing the Herald of Sigmar fall to Chaos breaks the Empire in an immeasurable way and bolsters Chaos to fight harder and better. Karl Franz retreats, his armies and spirit shattered. He'll need help if he's to stop Archaon, but time isn't on his side. We'll pick that up in a later video, my good chums. This is very experimental for me, so please let me know if you have any ways I can improve on this concept. If you think it's bad, don't be afraid to bash me, and I'll move back to your regularly scheduled programming. But until next time, thank you very much for watching, ghouls and gals, and I'll see you soon.